was a series of articles in the Chronicle of Higher Education about the Reacting to the Past pedagogy, and it really piqued my interest. And so I applied for a summer stipend actually through the foundation office, and I was lucky enough to be able to travel to Barnard College in New York City, where Reacting to the Past was pioneered, to go to their Summer Faculty Institute to learn how to teach with Reacting to the Past.
I think that it's part of our whole mission in the department and also in the College of Arts and Sciences more broadly to emphasize experiential learning activities. And so this manifests itself in the classroom with activities like Reacting to the Past, which gives the students an in-depth picture of what the French Revolution is like. It also is something we do outside of class with activities like Model Illinois Government, where students go to Springfield and take the role of legislators, in Model UN, where students represent countries of the world in the General Assembly and the Security Council.
One of the things that I really love about it is the way that it sort of puts them in the place of somebody with whom they might not agree, right? So they're assigned a character and their job is to play that character to the best of their ability. And it's very likely that in fact they don't agree with the stance that their character has, but they still have to sort of get inside that person's head, learn why that person believes what that person believes, and then be able to advocate that position if they want to be able to win the game.
And we think this is important for a few reasons. We think that experiential learning activities like this give students a more in-depth learning experience, and it teaches them essential skills that they'll need throughout their professional life. These range from things like public speaking, to persuasion and coalition building, to being able to think on their feet.
Rather than just sort of hearing a lecture about the French Revolution, for example, the students actually get to sort of live a piece of it out. And I think that that creates a deeper understanding and one that will stick with them longer as well.
The video you're about to see really emphasizes the in-class part of the experience with Reacting to the Past.
Hello, welcome back to our next meeting of the Assembly.
They are actually hindering their own rights by rioting against.
Oh yeah, aren't we your people? Aren't we your people? Do we not represent what you are fighting for?
You do represent what I am fighting for, but your unstable and violent actions are not suitable to the continuance of stable and intellectual thought on how to form the new government.
Well, when I was up there, I was pretty stable, I'd say so myself, and yet you didn't answer any of my questions. You didn't have a civil conversation with me. You ignored me.
If I had questions, I would have asked them. If I had answers, I would have given them.
I think the reacting game was a great experience because you get to take on a character that you might know nothing about at the start of the class, but slowly as you get a few days to learn your character, you come to a first session and you have to argue what that character believes.
You have to have a good argument going up there to the podium so people will listen to you, but you also be prepared for anything that can happen. Don't get complacent.
You have to find a way to actually argue for something, and I think that's just a great opportunity to show that the power that this course has is to just show the differences people have in opinions and how they can just flip-flop.
If they want to be successful in the game, they have to know their stuff. And we really see them engaging with the text at a deeper level than I tend to see in my other classes.
So I was actually a section leader, which basically meant I was the radical people of Paris. So I took it to mean to get very angry and radical, and I think a lot of it too was that day especially, we were not really being listened to.
The students who are at the table as actual delegates to the National Convention are really the ones who have a vote and who run the game, right? But we also have, as part of the game, the section leaders who represent the sort of ordinary people of Paris who really don't have a formal voice in the government or in what's happening in the National Assembly. And so their real way of having an impact on what's going on is by invoking the power of the crowd. And so when it's time for them to do that, there's a level of imagination that has to take place as well, where they're no longer in the assembly room, they're actually out on the streets of Paris talking to a crowd that has assembled. And so they sort of indicate that by turning and speaking out the window as though they're speaking to the people of Paris.
For months, we have been passive. We have been somewhat peaceful. We have silenced our angry cries so that we could approach the podium as equals. And what do we get for our peace? We get overturned. We get ignored.
Do you enjoy seeing your people in pain? And another thing, the king has done nothing, and I mean nothing for us. We are waiting for you to step up and be a leader.
Our voices have not been heard. They have been approaching us as if we were children. It is time we are taken seriously. We are, in fact, the people of France.
Lafayette, do you choose to take action? Lafayette has called martial law. Lafayette has chosen to call out the National Guard. Lafayette, that means that you will be conducting a die roll to see how effective the National Guard is in putting down this riot. Oh, the die roll has 12 with the -2 modifier. It is 10. 40 delegates have either died or fled Paris. Because the anger of the crowd was turned against the Conservatives, those losses will be taken from the Conservatives, 20 from each, putting Father Maury at 55 and Cazalet at 70.
I think you gain a lot of perspective taking skills, so you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes in order to play the game right. Even then, you have to put yourselves in like your opponent, like the other people in the game's shoes, to see like, hey, how will they argue this? So how can I counter argue it?
You might have a great point you want to bring across, but the other side doesn't agree with it. You kind of have to rework yourself and rework your strategy and everything. So it's definitely like, I learned a lot of really good like strategy methods.
So understanding like even if you don't know why someone's helping you, understanding how to behave around them, how to convince them to make compelling arguments, to talk to people, to understand where people are coming from and having to compromise on things. It was all very interesting, and it's definitely something I'm going to be remembering for a long time.
I want to go into politics and government eventually after I'm done with my degree. And one of the things, you got to shake a lot of hands and you got to make a couple of deals behind the scenes. So every day before we would play, I'd go and talk to people on all different sides of reacting to past games. And I'd be like, oh, so are we doing this? Are we doing this? And we'd have to kind of like make like deals with each other. So I definitely learned how to negotiate and present my case.
You just learn that everyone has completely different opinions than you. They have reason behind those opinions that you might not agree with, but it's what they believe in. You have a great opportunity to learn how to speak in front of other people. That's one thing that this class really helps you with, is speaking in front of people and defending an argument in front of people, or else you're going to get called out for it, which I think is really important, to defend your arguments well.
The fact that I got to be able to practice public speaking in a context that is not necessarily polite, the fact that I got to learn how to debate and how to be heard and how to be respectful, or in my case not be respectful, it was definitely helpful to know how to actually compose myself when I'm actually having a real debate as myself, not as a character. I know what not to do now that I've been orchestrating riots.
Hello, fellow citizens of France. I, on behalf of the Jacobin faction, would like to propose eliminating Clause 16 that ensures a separation of powers from the Declaration of the Rights of Man.
Does Rousseau not also say that the general will can sometimes be misthought of and the people can actually misrepresent the general will?
At times, yes. But we believe that the only way for the general will in our government that we are creating today, we believe that the general will only be the guiding force if we have a unicameral legislature. So that is why we're proposing to eliminate Clause 16.
Why does the Jacobin Club believe this?
Because we believe that a unicameral legislature is the best. Because in separating the powers, you have differing opinions that aren't all coming together as the general will.
And do you believe that a unicameral legislature is sufficient to represent these conflicting opinions?
Yes, we do.
So you don't believe that a separation of powers, separation and specialization of powers would be beneficial to the general will?
No.
You believe that if the National Assembly here voted for something and it turned out to be misrepresentative of the general will, what should we do then? We had no checks on that. We have no...
I thought King Louis' suspensive veto was a check on that.
But you're proposing to eliminate the separation of powers?
I would say it was very satisfying, but it was more satisfying to see my goals succeed, particularly when their success led to the failure of people who had been very against me throughout the game's failure. It was nice to see my faction succeed, though.
I just had a blast. Like, every day I was so excited to come into class, and I did so much background research. I remember the one night I was up to like 3 a.m. just researching like France in general, just to like make sure I was coming in as prepared as possible. It was like the best class I've taken here.
I would definitely recommend it so that people can get a different understanding of what college class can be. It doesn't always have to be a traditional lecture. You can sit and do that as well, but they can take you outside of your comfort zone, but you can also learn so much.
By operating against one another for the same goal, to provide the citizens of France their textiles, we keep prices low, workers satisfied with conditions, and locations convenient.
Although I am all for your argument here, what does free markets have to do with stabilizing?
They're both organized systems operating under rules stated and unstated. Each one requires a certain understanding of both an element of cooperation and an element of competition.
So that you are relating the competition to the checks and balances?
Oh, absolutely.
What if you're no longer all working towards the same goal? What if someone decides that they're no longer gonna play by the unspoken rules?
Then the general will collapses. And the government doesn't matter anymore at that point if it's founded on an unsound principle.
Why not start off all working towards the same goal?
That's why both are legislators. They're both working to provide laws that the land can operate under in the most freedom.
But if they are separated, they won't get anything done because they'll be too busy discussing what they need to get done. If they were united, they would just know and get it done. If they're separated, they would have to spend all this time debating and deciding, oh, should we keep this? Should we not keep this? We passed the martial law because we were too busy debating the martial law.
No, we weren't. We were past the martial law because no one had a chance to talk about it. We're already separated into factions. Even we, the indeterminates, are considered their own separate faction. No one had the chance to speak about martial law. It just happened.
Two legislators are divided in both working to make laws for the people. That in itself is separating the general will. And we're no longer working towards one thing, the general will. You are dividing them.
Are you a Jacobin?
Yes, I am.
Maury, are you a conservative? Do each of you believe that you are guiding the country in the direction the general will desires? But you're separate factions, right? Why are you separate factions? Why not separate the factions so that we can more quickly and more efficiently get our decisions completed?
But we are collectively one body.
Yes, a legislature.
Yes.
Even if there are two
We're
separate rooms,
one.
they're both passing the same law.
No, we need to be together in order to push the general will forward. Because all being together, we are able to debate along with one another as we're doing right now. If you have two separate legislatures in two different places meeting and making their own laws, that's no longer working together and that's no longer the general will.
This is my favorite class here. Honestly, I learned a lot. I took a lot out of it besides just like democracy aspects, like just as a person, like I feel like I grew in this class.
Even the people who didn't want to be a part of it became a very big part of it. Like, it was definitely something that's kind of united us and divided us a little bit because we still have grudges over who won and who lost, but like, it's definitely something that I think would be beneficial to see in a lot of different places, in a lot of different contexts, even if it isn't necessarily just about history.
It has a long-term impact on their learning. I think they remember what they've learned better when they do this kind of deep immersion in a particular era of history or a particular period of politics. But again, they also learn these essential skills like how to work with other people, how to persuade other people, how to think on their feet. And so I think these are very important. I think students realize that they're gaining these skills through these experiences.
I think that there is a place for more experiential learning in the classroom. I think that that there are lots of different ways that students learn, and this is one of those ways. And I think that incorporating more experiential learning of a variety of different types into the classroom would be beneficial to students.
We'd love to do this more. Through the generosity of a donor, we've had this room that really lends itself to experiential learning activities. We can move the tables and desks and chairs around all over the place and develop different formations. So we'd like to eventually have all our classrooms be experiential learning classrooms, and other faculty are certainly interested in expanding this kind of thing to their classes more than they already do.